Does your website,
Let's get this video.
and you don't even have to mention Asperger's for, you're geek. You're a garden variety geek.
Good morning, I'm Sherry Kinney with the Autism Society of Minnesota. I'm the CEO and Executive Director. We have the great pleasure today of having Dr. Temple Grandin join us for this particular interview and is working with us on a forum that we're offering related to autism and employment. Thank you, Temple, for coming in and joining us.
Well, it's good to be here.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you. What should employers know about autism?
Well, first of all, you wouldn't have any TV equipment to even talk on if it wasn't for people on the spectrum. A little bit of the autism trait gives you a really smart geek that brings you Silicon Valley, brings you Hollywood, brings you all kinds of good stuff. Down at the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that are much more severe and nonverbal. And the thing is, in today's society where there's less manners being taught and things like that, and kids aren't taught social rules the same way, the mild autism or Asperger or geek, it's the same thing, is having a harder time. And what employers need to know is you can have a really good employee, but don't be subtle. If they do something like being rude to a customer, don't say you were rude to a customer. What you need to do is pull them back into the office and tell them exactly what they did that was rude to a customer and why, and just tell them in a really matter-of-fact way. You don't be vague. You need to tell them exactly what you're supposed to do in the job.
Yeah, so those accommodations of talking in very black and white terms is helpful for somebody on the spectrum. What else is helpful? Things like being organized, a schedule?
Yep, organized schedule. I mean, there's some kids with a lot of problems with scheduling. And again, I think it's because we're living a less ordered life today. I mean, when I was a child, meals were right on time. I was taught to be on time. I'm seeing more individuals today having trouble with that. That wasn't a big issue for me. Another issue is sensory sensitivities, and this isn't just autism. You can have kids with learning problems or dyslexia or ADHD where fluorescent lights flicker. And that 60-cycle flicker of fluorescent lights, it's like being in a discotheque. That can be bad, and as we're getting into more and more energy saving, this problem's going to get worse. Now, there are new kinds of lighting coming out that will be a higher frequency that may not be a problem, but this could make the normal office environment just impossible for certain individuals. Not everybody on the spectrum. A lot of people on the spectrum have no problem with fluorescent lights. Loud sounds, going to need a quiet place to work. Another issue is multitasking. There are a lot of entry-level jobs that I couldn't do, like receptionist in a busy office, and I got to type at the same time. That's not going to work very well. And the things that I do professionally, design work, this is something where I could go quietly off by myself and I design it. A lot of high-level work does not require multitasking. Okay, if you're working as an engineer, you're not multitasking. You've got to figure out how to design something, do some mathematical calculations. You can't be multitasking while you're doing that.
Very good. And so jobs like computer design, jobs in engineering, what other jobs are good for those that are on the spectrum?
There seem to be three different kinds of minds on the spectrum. You have the visual thinkers like me, photorealistic visual thinkers, often have difficulty in math, couldn't do algebra. A lot of these kids can do geometry, though, where good jobs for them are industrial design, graphic design, movie animation. In my industry, in the meat industry, there's a lot of people that are, really kind of geeky that lay the plants out. They visualize all that stuff. Photography, training animals, those will all be really great fields. Then we have our pattern thinkers. It's a more abstract kind of thinking. Think chess, origami, organic chemistry molecules. These are your engineers, these are your computer programmers, and if you didn't have a little bit of autism genetics, you wouldn't even have Silicon Valley, you wouldn't even have a computer, you wouldn't have a TV camera. We'd still be back in caves. Social circuits take up processor space in the brain. Then you take away some social circuits, you got more time, more circuits for geek stuff. Then a third type is a word thinker. These are the kids that love history. They're all into words. And these are the kind of kid that if they're working retail in a store, they're really going to know the products. They can be very useful working in retail, anything with record keeping they'd be good at. And they have to just be taught, the social interaction with the customer. But that's pretty hard. I went to graduate school with a guy, he actually got a PhD, and he's working in retail now. He's been working in retail all his life. He's underemployed, but he's kept these jobs over the years with good health benefits, and his employer appreciates his work. And when I lived in Illinois, there was a guy that worked in the local hardware store there in the paint department, and he made ads of Super Perry flying around on the screen. This guy was as Asperger as he could be, but that hardware store really valued him. You see, what I'm seeing is there's an awful lot of geeks and nerds around that are not diagnosed. A lot of those are doing really well. And then I'm seeing ones where they're almost getting kind of a handicap mentality. The thing that I had to learn is I had to sell my skill and not myself. So the way I sold jobs working freelance on designing livestock equipment was showing pictures and drawings, selling my skill. But then you have the ones with the word thinkers. There's less portfolio to show. You know, if you're a mathematician, you can show off math. If you're a programmer, you can show off programming. Or if you're a visual thinker, you can show off drawings and animation and movie stuff that you've done. You know, word thinker, but the word thinkers can be really good in jobs where they just have to have knowledge of the product. Okay, like Best Buy is the program here. Well, they're going to know every device in there and be able to tell you what's in stock, what's not in stock, what are all the features on the device. They can be walking encyclopedias. And this guy that I knew that worked in the paint store, I mean, he knew everything there was about paint. And he was appreciated for his knowledge. And since he's a guy that was about my age or maybe a little older, he had the 50s and 60s social rules pounded into him, which are not getting pounded into kids today.
Very good, very good. So in closing, a question that I have for you is, I know you're concerned, like I am, about label first. Talk more about what that really means.
People get hung up on labels, you know, and I'm saying, you know, too many labels, and we're not thinking enough on what the person's ability is. You know, we have to look at what is the person's problem. You know, actually, you go out to places like Silicon Valley, it's all full of mild autism, and they avoid the labels. They get worried about the kids being held back. And a lot of those kids get apprenticed into those fields. And this brings up another thing, teaching job skills young. You know, if your mom's a computer programmer, you can teach her son to be a computer programmer. Or the dad's an artist, teach the son to be an artist. Or teach the son to be a mechanic. Or there's a lot of jobs, and there's actually a shortage of these jobs now, things like electricians, plumbers, heating and air conditioning, auto mechanics, which would be great jobs for a lot of these guys. I think it's a shame that in a lot of states, they've taken the hands-on classes out of the schools, because sometimes it's the auto shop teacher that gets the kid turned around and working.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and participating in this event. And thanks for spending a few minutes with us today.
You're very welcome.